Oh. Yeah. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated again. The Secretary will read the order of this mini plenary.
Debate on vote number 34, Mineral Resources and Energy Appropriation Bill.
The Honourable the Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources.
Thank you, House Chairperson, Deputy Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Ms. Judith Namatsinga. Then there's another minister here, Minister of Electricity and Energy. I don't understand how to separate the two. That is put Ram Hopa. You separate you? Members in this House, today we are tabling budget 34, which is a budget for the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. When the department is in a situation of being reconfigured. Therefore, this is, I call it a transitional budget, because we are reconfiguring the department. There's Mineral and Petroleum Resources and Electricity and Energy. Those are the two departments. This budget covers both of them. Our experience in the past 5 years has pointed us to the fact that the petroleum sector has been a second fiddle to other forms of energy, in particular the fascination with renewable resources. Now, thus the formation of the Ministry of Mineral and Petroleum Resources ends the neglect of the petroleum sector and mandates us to meaningfully promote and advance the sector for South Africa to meaningfully benefit from its petroleum endowment. This is a mandate that we fully accept and commit to realize with the help of this August House. We deliver this budget under the difficult conditions where the economy has been confronted with several headwinds, including, but not limited to, geopolitical factors, infrastructure inefficiency, structural integrity, particularly rail, ports, and electricity supply. This was also compounded by depressed commodity prices for more than 1 quarter. Despite this fact, and due to the bullish market of some commodities such as gold, we have seen the improvement of the performance of the mining industry with 2.4% contribution of mining to the GDP in Q4 of 2023 compared to the minus 3.2% in Q4 of 2022. So we're not talking about overall improvement. We'll come back to that. We're making a comparison from quarter to quarter. Effectively, in rand terms, in 2023, we saw mining sector contributing 444.2 billion rand to the country's gross domestic product, amounting to 6% of the total GDP. In the same period, the mining industry export earnings totaled to 654 billion rands, while the mining sector employs 489,000 mine workers. We have noted with concern the recent retrenchment, specifically in the platinum sector. In response to these job losses, we have pulled our social partners together and were in discussions to craft an approach to minimize them. Over and above this, we are making significant progress in NICOM and LCC. The NLCC is the National Logistics Crisis Committee, where we have formed partnership with industry players to improve the state of infrastructure to support mining. We must express our appreciation of the continued suspension of load shedding That is put. We appreciate that, and we're hoping that when the results are announced tomorrow of the quarter, we'll see some improvement as a result of the performance of the electricity sector. Honorable Chairperson, the 30-year mark since the promulgation of the MPRDA provided us a half-time moment to reflect on the performance over its tenure thus far. In this reflection, it became evident that it has largely delivered on its intended goals, but has not without that was not without challenges and shortcomings. Yes. To this end, the department is currently drafting amendments to the MPRDA aimed at ensuring that areas that have been identified as weak and those that have been challenged legally are strengthened against international best practice. The amendments will also review the licensing regime to reduce the red tape and improve business environment for investors while keeping in sync with South Africa's social and economic fabric. These amendments are a continuation of regulatory and policy adjustment we initiated during the sixth administration, where we reviewed the following. Mine Health and Safety Act was reviewed. It is therefore going to be tabled to Cabinet for approval. We drafted and submitted the Upstream Petroleum Resource Development Bill to Parliament, which has been adopted by both houses of Parliament and ready for presidential assent. Petroleum Products Amendment Bill, which is ready for submission to Cabinet to obtain approval for publish of shareholders' comments. We drafted the South African National Petroleum Company Bill, which is aimed at creating a state-owned national champion for active participation in oil and gas projects. This bill is also ready for submission to Cabinet and therefore be transmitted to Parliament. The SANPAC has been registered in terms of Company Act with an interim CEO appointed to get governance arrangements going. Electricity Regulation Amendment Bill intended to introduce electricity market reforms and National Nuclear Regulator Amendment Bill aimed at strengthening the nuclear regulatory framework were passed by Parliament and are being considered by President for assent into law. Amended Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act to enable the development of generation capacity by private sector without the need for license. You will remember that in that area we've removed the ceiling, which used to be 1 megawatt, it went to 100 megawatts. Instead of going to 1,000 as demanded, we said, remove the ceiling, it is no ceiling now. Following that, NERSA has registered 1,406 generation facilities with a combined capacity of 6,977 megawatts. The Gas Amendment Bill, for which we have just concluded shareholder consultation and will be taking it through the NEDLEC consultation in August this year, after which it will be submitted to Cabinet for onward transmission to Parliament. Understanding the gravity of the impact of illegal mining to the economy, in the previous year we drafted the General Law Amendment Bill, which seeks to synchronize the provisions contained in the MPRDA Diamond Act and those of Criminal Procedure Act, thus empowering police to end and arrest illegal miners for their criminal deeds. This bill is ready for submission to Cabinet and allows the Minister to table it in Parliament. Chairperson and honorable members, in our quest to strive for evidence-based policy making, we are currently drafting a report on state of mining. We have taken that decision deliberately, Honorable Lorima, because every lazy analyst writes about mining, sometimes not taking care of facts, just write anything they like about mining. We are commissioning a study where it will be a study that gives you scientific evidence on the state of mining in the country. We've completed 7 minerals thus far, We're going to complete it within no time. We're quite urgent. We treat it as very urgent. And we also look at a study on critical minerals. You know, critical minerals depend on the country. They define it in terms of what country needs what. We're looking into various options to develop critical minerals. I can assure you that in many of the examples, we've discovered that coal is a critical mineral. I know many don't think that coal is a critical mineral. It is a critical mineral. It has a number of byproducts that are critical for the future. Given South African endowment with considerable mineral reserves of strategic significance to the global economy, we are convinced that increased exploration will enable the country to meaningful benefit from global advantage. To enable this, and guided by the exploration strategies we develop in partnership with the industry, working with Industrial Development Corporation, we've established an exploration fund to support the emerging and junior miners. It is winter. Yeah, to activate the fund, the first fund call focusing on copper, nickel, lithium, rare earth elements, and graphite was issued on 3rd June this year. As of today, 11 July, we've received a total of 15 applications for that exploration fund. The value of it is 200 million rand. We're hoping that it can be grown. And it is important that we'll close the window by tomorrow, 12th of July. We intend to intensify our engagement with several fund managers and investor community to secure additional financing to sustain and fund into the future. In addition, the department has allocated 72 million rand to fund artisanal and small-scale miners. That is not legalizing illegal miners. That is not what it is. It is funding directed at artisanal and small-scale miners. And it focuses on women and youth-owned companies in the main. 21 of these companies that responded to the funding call have successfully completed the rigorous due diligence process. Following the conclusion of the contracting agreement between IDC and the beneficiaries, funds towards their projects will be dispersed not later than September this year. Recognizing the importance of efficient and transparent mining licenses for regulatory certainty and sustainability of mining industry, we announced in February this year the appointment of PMG Consortium as a successful bidder for design, implementation, and maintenance of the mining license system. To this end, the service level agreement with them has been concluded and the systematic implementation of the project has begun with an intention to complete the total migration to the new system by June 2025. Social and labor plans have proven to be a very effective instrument through which host and labor sending communities have received tangible benefit through infrastructure projects such as schools, clinics, bridges, and water supply system. We are venturing into food production projects as well. To this end, during the Super administration, the industry implemented and completed 534 SLP projects in various provinces, totaling to 2.5 billion rand as part of the social license to operate. SLPs is not a favor. It is a social license that gives mine owners a license to operate with the neighborhood of the people around them. We've given you a list of some of the projects. If you are in Rustenburg, you go to Machaganeng, you see that we launched a primary school and a secondary school on the same day. If you are in the Eastern Cape, you go to Aidugwa, you'll find SJS Kenjana, and you'll see Mpindweni Clinic in the Eastern Cape, Rockdale Clinic in Mpumalanga, and Modderfontein. We're just giving you a taste of the type of projects that we're delivering. Honorable members, health and safety of mine workers remain at the center of the work we do, owing to our strategic partnership with our social partners, we have improved our performance towards zero harm goal. This is demonstrable to the decline of mine fatalities, injuries, and occupational diseases, as evidenced by 49 fatalities being the lowest on record in 2022. Although we had set ourselves to breaking this record in 2023, then we had regrettably a disaster in Impala, which killed 13 mine workers and many other fatality incidents that contributed to regression and resulting to, in 2023, to 53 fatalities in the industry. But there's an issue that we think this committee must look into, is that there's an emerging trend of road accidents for workers on the way to work. It is not regarded as mine accidents, but it impacts on mine workers going to work and to have an accident. We saw one in Venetia, we saw another one in Tubatse, and those have brought to our attention that they need to focus on all these disasters. And in addition to that, we must find a way of quantifying deaths that are happening in illegal mining activities. They are not regarded as part of the mine accident, but they impact on the lives in mining communities. House Chairperson, at the beginning of the sixth administration, we had state-owned entities with limbing governance structures, where in most of them there was no boards, there were no COs. Owing to this, most of them has disclaimers, qualified audit outcomes, following our intentional approach to ensure good governance, and thereby appointing competent boards. We've seen at least 8 of our 11 SOEs obtaining either clean audit or unqualified audit in 2022-23 financial year. The 2 in red are NEXA, which has received a qualified audit, improving from a disclaimer. It was a disclaimer, it has improved to qualified audit. What is more disappointing to us is the AE, which is the mining entity, which ended up with a disclaimer. It is receiving our attention. We're committing to work on it. Chairperson, in 2024-25 financial year, we've been allocated 8.84 billion rand, of which 6.4 is earmarked for transfer to public entities, municipalities, and other institutions and implementing agents. And want to make this point, the low allocation talks to our view that the state doesn't invest in productive sectors. It put a lot of emphasis on spending, on social spending. But it is our view that it's not sustainable to continue with social spending if you don't sufficiently spend on productive sector, which generate the resources. We're making this point as a point that needs to be looked into and be observed. The INEP, which is the Integrated National Electricity Program, has connected 837,189 households to the national grid during the sixth administration, and a further 7,780 households were connected to non-grid technology. So, mindful of the importance of access to electricity to address energy poverty, we have resolved to disperse the 3.94 billion of our budget allocated to INEP as follows: 2.2 billion to INEP ESCOM, 1.8 billion to municipalities. We've just reprioritized 181.9 million rand from INEP to fund government programs of rehabilitation of derelict and ownerless mines, improving the performance in terms of closing the holes on the ground. Coupled with our efforts to attain Goal 7 of the United Nations Sustainability Goals, the department has since gazetted an integrated resource plan in 2019. It procured 6,094 megawatts from diversified energy mix and to meet countries' growing electricity demand with reducing carbon emissions to high. We have listed in the report a number of these connections, the 150 megawatts to RMIPPPP, which has been connected to national grid. We have also talked to the bid window 5, where 1,159 megawatts are under construction and 1,424 megawatts failed to achieve commercial close. And it is important to note that we are putting a long list of these projects for consideration by the committee. The government is now on course of procuring 2,500 megawatts of nuclear new build program. And that program is still in the program. So we hope we'll be able to build it. We've also completed our attempt to revive the IRP 2019. So while we appreciate the return to full operation of the Cape Town refinery, the time is up. We are going to be looking into building refinery capacity in the country. We've got surplus for R1. We'll build it because we need that refining capacity. And we'll also revive PetroSA refining capacity. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable members, the next speaker is from the ANC, the Honourable Mahlahude.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and greetings to ministers and deputy ministers. Honourable members, what is clear from this budget is that it dismisses the increasingly false assumption that oil and the government's energy mix considerations are separable. Most typically, environmental justice organizations in South Africa reason, correct or not correct, that oil increases the build-up of greenhouse gas emissions and therefore advocate for more extreme near-term mitigation policies. The judgment on oil and gas handed down by the Eastern Cape Division, which reviewed and set aside the granting and renewal of offshore exploration rights, which would, amongst others, allow for the conducting of seismic surveys of the East Coast, exemplifies the more extreme near-term mitigation policies advocated for by the environmental justice organizations. Consequently, billions of rands earmarked for investment in oil exploration and production could be lost, sounding the death knell for the upstream petroleum sector and its inclusive development prospects. In contrast, this budget, weighing cost and damages, accords directly with a balanced economic approach that addresses climate change with minimal reductions in economic growth and inclusive development. As such, this budget vote yields high decisiveness and commitment to using oil to ensure efficient distribution of liquid fuels and that the upstream petroleum industry thrives in the country. The exploration of and production of oil is clearly significant, and that is the reason why this budget commits itself to the finalization of the upstream petroleum resource development plan. This commitment to finalize UPRD bill in the current financial year is consistent with the government of national unity's objective to reduce South Africa's heavy dependence on imported oil and liquid fuels, partly because such dependence has had a large negative impact on the country's balance of payment, and partly because the premature closure of oil refineries has presented a new set of challenges for the efficient distribution of liquid fuels in the country. In countries heavily dependent on imported oil and liquid fuels, energy security is uninterrupted, supply of liquid fuels become less clear. To avoid this, the UPRD bill presents South Africa with an opportunity to unlock 27 billion barrels of prospective petroleum resources estimated for the country, which are of a scale far larger than Angola, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, so that the energy security is uninterrupted in terms of supply of liquid fuels. Unlocking South Africa's prospective petroleum resources could thus aid the country's stabilization of balance of payment, which enables nominal and real macroeconomic variables to be achieved, such as stable prices of energy and food, sustainable growth, economically and large-scale job creation. Stabilization of energy and food prices is likely to minimize South Africa's vulnerability to the rise in core inflation driven mainly by imported inflation of cost-push variety, which result in a larger decline in input growth and employment creation, and thus causes long-term damage to the economy. It is apparent that this budget commitment is to thwart South Africa's heavy dependence in imported oil and liquid fuels, and is not limited to the finalization, or is not limited to the finalization of the UPRDA. The consolidation of Central Energy Fund companies of groups into the South African National Petroleum Company in the 2024-25 financial year illustrates this logic. This consolidation is a strategic response to the need for securing petroleum resources benefit for South African citizens through active state participation in the upstream petroleum industry. Particularly, state participation in the upstream petroleum industry through the SANPEC is aimed at enabling the government of national unity to successfully mobilize resources for public investment in physical and social infrastructure, and to ensure that citizens who live in petroleum resources producing communities benefit financially from the riches extracted from their lands. More crucially, such state participation is geared towards compensating communities for the social, economic, and environmental cost of exploration and production, so that petroleum resources extraction ameliorates rather than exacerbates local levels of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. In addition to this, state participation through SANPEC acts as a stimulus to the implementation of the much-needed local content policies which seek to address skills development, prioritization of recruitment of local persons, and national participation through procurement of goods and services by Black persons in the upstream petroleum industry. This is to ensure that the exploration and production of petroleum resources do not occur quite independently of other economic processes that take place in South Africa. A good illustration of this is that local content policies will open profitable opportunities for South African companies, preferably owned by historically disadvantaged South Africans, to innovate, improve inefficiencies, achieve economies of scale, scope, and develop internal capabilities through learning by doing to supply goods and services to support the upstream petroleum industry. Reviewing the PPA, which is the Petroleum Product Act, in this financial year, has several advantages for the downstream petroleum industry. The first is that the reviewed PPA will militate against the growing trend of non-compliance to license conditions in the downstream petroleum industry, which results in the failure to achieve fuel specification as well as standard objectives and loss of revenue collection due to adulteration and importation of off-spec petroleum product. Hence, Budget 34 sets aside funds to conduct inspections aimed at increasing compliance with petroleum licenses and fuel specification in the downstream petroleum industry. The second advantage is that the reviewed PPA will improve consistency in the issuing of licenses in the downstream petroleum industry to ensure that this important industry contributes towards government priorities of transformation and job creation. This budget vote plans to issue rights or permits in the downstream petroleum industry to 200 historically disadvantaged South Africans over 2024-2025 financial year. Finally, the reviewed PPA will bring about transparency in the regulation of fuel prices in the downstream industry to promote access to affordable petroleum products. With that said, the ANC supports the adoption of Budget 34. Thank you very much.
Honourable members, the next speaker is the Honourable Lorimer from the DA.
Thank you, House Chair. When I spoke in the Mineral Resources budget vote in May last year, I spoke of the need for a new vision, for a new deal for South African mining. I suggested some steps that the Minister could take to encourage a fresh flow of investment. If I were to make exactly the same speech today, it would still be pertinent. Calls for help have been ignored, problems have not been fixed, opportunities have been left untaken. Mining and petroleum are struggling, the government is not helping. The Minister clearly believes his study will show mining is doing well. I would appeal to him when he conducts that study to talk to the mine that has had to retrench 11,500 workers. I would appeal to him also to ask miners who are trying unsuccessfully to raise backing money for projects. One of the reasons for that is the new cadastral system, which proceeds at a snail's pace. At the mining in Durban, the Minister gave himself a year to get the system launched and perfected. Then we hear it's taken until May to get a service level agreement with the chosen service providers. The idea of getting 3 companies involved in this process was always going to be a risky one. Why could we not have got a turnkey, tried and tested solution? Now, the Minister must know that the credibility of a mining jurisdiction has a lot to do with transparency. A credible, investable mining jurisdiction must be transparent. Here's what we could do to show transparency while we wait for the new cadastral system. The Minister could extract and publish on the department's website the ESRI geodatabase file of all accepted, granted and renewals of prospecting rights, and mining permits. The file could include the basic data about the rights, like commodities covered, expiry dates, who holds the rights and the geographical extent. That would give some transparency right away. That would give some credibility right away. What would also help is if the department published a monthly report of the status of all rights applications and backlogs. Interesting in this respect, I went and looked. In 2014, the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources said the department must account for progress in meeting the challenges of SAMRAD. At that time, we were the only party saying SAMRAD should be replaced. Now we sit here, 10 years later, still without a properly working cadastral system. I'm glad to hear the department will be investigating which rights holders have not complied with their mining works programs. At last, this should have been regularly monitored, and if that is done, it will ensure that speculators and rent extractors do not squat on rights and prevent real miners from using them. But we can't just have another good intention expressed without implementation and completion dates. The slow speed of departmental operations is unacceptable. Expectations are raised and then hopes are dashed because of how long anything takes to get done. We have an urgent need for jobs and growth. We can't wait while the administration works at an indolent pace. There's also been very slow progress on tightening the law against illegal mining. It would take changes to just one paragraph of the MPRDA to properly criminalize illegal mining. One might think that would be quick and easy to do so. Not so. We've heard about an entire General Laws Amendment Bill that is wending its way through the sclerotic cabinet processes. In the meantime, there has been a pleasing increase in arrests for illegal activity, but how many convictions will there be if the law is not there to underpin them? The government has not got its act together on oil and gas. Now we have reports that oil and gas major Total is going to walk away from its offshore oil discoveries at Luiperd and Brulpadda off the coast of Mossel Bay. The company's not confirming this, but sources say it may happen. By some accounts, Total has spent about 10 billion rand drilling and finding these resources. They lie far offshore in technically difficult terrain, but their biggest reason for the lack of interest in developing it is said to be the failure to secure a solid offtake customer for the product. One place it could be used is in a gas-to-power plant. But if the oil company can't be assured of an offtake, it's not going to be worthwhile for them spending more on that project. Another possible destination for gas is the Mosgas gas-to-liquid fuel plant, which government wants Russian funding to refurbish. People are speculating that the reason for Russian involvement is so that Russian gas can be imported and whitewashed through the plant and sold as South African fuel to get around sanctions. The minister has a chance now to say this is not going to happen. I hope he uses that chance. We can't sacrifice the prospect of jobs and income for our people because the ANC wants to remain friends with Russia. If somebody spends billions discovering a resource, government needs to facilitate them finding an outlet. If they do not, nobody will invest money in finding resources. The Petroleum Agency says this project could contribute 9 billion rand annually to government income. We dare not drop this ball. One of the items on the department's to-do list is the rewriting of the MPRDA. The ANC has said it wants to include some of the elements of the last rejected version of the mining charter in the rewrite. The simple question in this regard is, will it make our mining industry more investable? We've all seen how badly we're faring on the Fraser Institute rankings of investable mining jurisdictions. So unless the answer to that question is yes, the minister should steer well clear of this. We have a changed political reality in South Africa. We can use it as an opportunity to change our economic fate. If we try to continue with business as usual, the downward trend will continue and an escape from poverty will be denied to hundreds of thousands of our people.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is from the MK, the Honourable Ndlela. Honourable Members, to the best of my knowledge, this is a maiden speech.
Don't intimidate me. You're welcome to do as you please. Honourable Speaker, respected members of Parliament, today I rise on behalf of MK Party under the leadership of President Jacob Zuma and our party leader, Dr. John Hlophe, to oppose the Mineral and Petroleum Resources bill and vote. Oppose. I'm very well versed in the English language, by the way. The mineral and petroleum sectors hold a vast potential for economic development, with South Africa having an existing refinery, the second largest on the continent, an asset which we are underutilizing as a country. This asset has anchored SADC fuel demand for the past 3 or so decades to the benefit of multinationals. However, we as Mkhonto Sizwe want 100% ownership of the asset back to the state. In the past 2 decades, South Africa has grown in excess of over 500 business and enterprises that can benefit immediately at the back of this asset using very innovative trading and financing leverages, which are being blocked by the current imperial beneficiaries. We therefore urge the state to have a very economical, transformative approach on this asset. Having said that, the upstream operation as a country has been lagging for years, whereby other African states are now taking advantage of our latency. The LNG saga in Mozambique is a clear demonstration. We are aware that certain private sector entities have secured molecule to service the growing need of product for the industrialization of our country. We as Mkhonto Sizwe, having studied the SADC master plan, are aware that we need to urgently energize and take lead using our own South Africa's academia, entrepreneurs, and other stakeholders. At the right platform, Chairperson, we would like to make pragmatic recommendations that are specific with a special focus to certain provinces, in particular KZN, our province, Free State, our other province, Eastern Cape, our other province, Western Cape, soon to be our province, on an accelerated energy industrialization program and can do and achieve within the next 5 years of this administration. However, the current system overwhelmingly favors established white-owned businesses, leaving our most disadvantaged communities behind. The wealth generated from our national resources must be used to address unemployment, poverty, and inequality in the townships as well as the rural areas. Now, when we look at the issues relating to nationalization and equitable growth, Minister, the MK party believes in nationalization of the mineral sector. The minerals environment has been regressing but consistently benefiting a few at the expense of the majority. Hence, we've always been calling that we need to change this constitution and able to ensure organic transformation so that we can actually nationalize specific mining assets. We, as MKP, have engaged with the various stakeholders and are aware of the potential danger and explosion of this bubble. In our approach, we believe that now that we have this convenient GNU and we are stuck with it, let's really look at the position of all these programs such as the Richards Bay program, the IDP, and other initiatives. By doing so, we can ensure that the benefits of these resources are distributed equitably among South Africans, not just the privileged few. Nationalization will enable us to channel profits into public investments, infrastructure development, social programs that directly benefit the people. We need to nationalize strategic assets and ensure the beneficiation and the organic beneficiation of our people. Chairperson, a case in point, you could look at the SAPREF, which should be refining its own products for sale and distribution via PLENARIES as a retail network. Now, Mozambique, just next door, in a form of Petromark, has got the same kind of establishment as a retail network that works. This alone will have a significant impact on the basic fuel price and therefore having a dominant effect on the inflation and the cost of living of our people overall. Chairperson, why should we be dictated to as to where we should be getting our oil from? For example, why can't we source our oil from Russia, who is a member of BRICS, when it's to the benefit of our country and its people? A case in point, I'll give you an example. PLENARIES, Minister knows this, found itself having to beg Shell to offload a vessel of product in Mossel Bay when it was actually for a critical function in the form of load shedding, because it was believed that the product was coming from Russia. Whose country is this? Why should we be begging a multinational to offload our own product, which is a mission-critical product for the nation? Energy security is what we stand for. It is a constitutional imperative that the government provides services to all and never leaves anyone behind. We have three main priorities: energy security, this is the oxygen of the economy because it drives the economy. The cost of energy services must be affordable, and it is not. If it's not, then access to energy becomes discriminatory. We have encumbered the country with huge loans that come with punitive conditions, which in effect have an impact on the price of services in our network industries, in this case, Eskom. The cost of electricity alone is unsustainable and beyond affordable for the jobless, downtrodden people of our country. Whilst we may want to decarbonize the economy, we must do so at the cost and the scale and the pace we can afford. The sixth administration destroyed the electricity system for a just electricity and a just energy transition, whilst being obsessed with fighting the so-called state capture. In 2017, the surplus generation capacity was at 5,600 megawatts. The energy availability factor was 86% for June 2017. You now know, after whose administration that was, when we had such good numbers, when Eskom's debt at that time was sitting at 85 billion. But today, under this, and even the previous administration, it is sitting at 160 billion rand. Go figure. Numbers don't lie. The annual energy availability was 78%, and Eskom met its peak electricity demand at 35,800 megawatts. The diesel consumption was only 10 million liters at 800,000 rand a month compared to the 2.9 billion that we sit with in 2024 financial year. These numbers are in normal rands. The sixth administration destroyed all of that. This is the reason why there are at 40%, I guess, today. We believe that focus should be to expand the electricity grid to rural areas because it is the same votes that came our way that were neglected. The priority from controversies is to protect the power system and not leave anyone behind. We believe that it is the physics of the power system that will come to pass. And we, by physics of the power system, yes?
Your time has unfortunately now expired.
I thank you, and we reject this bill.
The next speaker is the Honourable Ntlangwini from the EFF.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Greetings to the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, and happy birthday to the EFF as we are celebrating our 11th year this month. House Chairperson, the EFF rejects the proposed draft budget as tabled by the Minister of Finance and blindly supported by the Portfolio Committee of Minerals and Petroleum. And we do so for the following reasons. The committee have no basis or justification to whether to support or reject the proposed budget precisely because the committee cannot claim that they have thoroughly gone through the proposed budget in detail. We have done this before a budget review and recommendation process and thereafter generated a well-considered report with consultations. In the past, for this budget, we would engage the department and later on engage each entity individually, satisfying ourselves that public money is going to where public money is going to be spent in responsible and transparent manner. We cannot agree on the policy direction of the department minister, but we can satisfy ourselves that we have done our work thoroughly and we have engaged the report thoroughly. But this time around, because the president of the GNU, led by the Democratic Alliance and the Oppenheimers, was late to form government, which delayed the work of Parliament, which delayed our work to meaningfully engage the report, and we only had 3 hours to engage this report. Well, in these 3 hours that we had to engage this report, Minister, we were told, finish up because there's another committee waiting to start the meeting. So we couldn't satisfy ourselves with the report, the nitty-gritties of the report. So with those that are standing here to want to play to the gallery and support this report, knows for themselves they have not gone through this report thoroughly, and they are just doing this for compliance and a tick box exercise. House Chair, on a more substantial matter of policy, we must reject the decision of Mr. Ramaphosa to once again separate the minerals department within 2 ministers. We were satisfied with minerals and energy being one department, but because Mr. Ramaphosa needed to make spaces for his GNU partners, he needed once again to separate this critical department to make space for his GNU partners. Well, Mr. Steenhuisen and Dean could have well aware be there in some ministries being secretaries or go back to school. They don't need to be ministers because they suffer some incompetencies. We must be unapologetic of the use of our natural resources, particularly coal, to ensure that there is enough electricity generation, not only to meet the current demand, but also for industrialization and economic growth. Lastly, Chair, we must not get into the details. We didn't get into the details, CFO, of the health and safety, because only 2.7% of your budget is going to health and safety. And that is wrong. It's a major crisis within the energy sector. And for your budget to only give us 2.7%, and we don't know exactly where that 2.7% is going to be spent, Minister, within your budget. We didn't get enough time, Minister, to also address the issue of the fuel syndicate that are busy contaminating our fuel supply within the country. Those things need to be published, and there must be open accountability. We cannot be told as a committee, no, there is a syndicate and we can't investigate them, and we leave it as such. There must be a broader, and South Africans must be taken into account of these syndicates that contaminate our fuel supply within the country. We are waiting with bated breath for your report, Minister. We know within this 5 years, we will still not get report on the scarce minerals that is within our shores of South Africa. But as the EFF, we reject this report. Fighters, let's gather on the 27th of July for our 11th celebration in Northern Cape at the AR Abo Sports Center to celebrate the anniversary of the EFF. We reject this report because we are not here to do a rush-rush situation. We are not part of your rush-rush engagements of your GNU. We want proper time to engage reports and not to be rushed in your GNU partnerships in order to go and loot money. You are in a rush to close up the debts that you have made for your elections, and we're not going to be party to that. So if you have promised the Oppenheimers more money, you're not going to get it this term. Minister, we reject this.
Order, order. The next speaker is the Honourable Sitole of the IFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Let me correct one thing. I'm standing in for Mzansi. We are truly blessed country when it comes to mineral wealth, as South Africa remains home to the greatest mineral wealth in the world, estimated to be worth $2.5 trillion, with the world's 5th largest mining sector. However, we continue to fail to take advantage of such blessings, with little or none of the world benefiting the country after it has been mined by foreign investors. In a media statement earlier this year, the Mining Council has also stated that for the mining sector in particular, progress on improving the operational performance of state-owned enterprises is crucial given the National Treasury's mixed assumption for major commodity prices. As we have all been able to see, the mining industry severely constrained by drastic downward correction in prices of various commodities, including platinum group metals and coal, and the subsequent of Transnet as deteriorating rail and port services. Now, more than ever, South Africa needs faster growth of private and public sector, fixed investment, and rapid implementation of deep structural reform to allow private sector to participate in key areas of the economy. Furthermore, our mining sector requires greater oversight and scrutiny. ICT can assist the new government in not only creating a more effective licensing framework, but also providing greater ease of access to information in the sector. We also want to reiterate, as we've urged the previous administration, that mine health and safety must be prioritized, and performance targets set by the Mine Health and Safety Inspectorate program for this year must be met. Let me go further to say, impela isisho sesiZulu sithi ithemba alibulali noma alilahla. Ubani engacabanga ukuthi amagugu ambiwa ayocoyisiswa emazweni aphesheya sasinethemba lokuthi azocoyiswa ngaphakathi ukuze kwandiswe amathuba emisebenzi abantu bekwazi ukusebenza. Kwashiwo nje ngomlomo lokho kodwa asibonanga kwenzeka. Imisebenzi ayikho. Kunjani nje? Kuyenziwa qha. Kubuye sekucoyisiwe abantu bebe behleli bengasebenzi. Nanxa kumuntu esekushilo konke lokho ngiyafisa ukuthi usho ukuthi i-IFP iyakusupporta ibudget yakhe. Ngiyabonga.
Honourable members, the next party who is entitled to take order. Honourable members, the next party who is entitled to take part in this debate is the PA. There is no speaker, however, on the list for the PA. Is the PA present? We don't see them here. Honourable members, there is also been a request from the Honourable Thring of the ACDP to speak earlier in this debate to enable him to speak in another debate, to which we have acceded. The Honourable Thring.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. The ACDP notes the budget decrease in 2023-24 to some 8.8 billion in the financial year. The budget increase in the Policy Development Management sub-program of over 110% is to promote and encourage investment in the mining and energy industry. In this regard, the ACDP echoes the concerns of bottlenecks that exist in the issuing of mining rights, permits, and prospecting rights. Additionally, pertaining to the subject of illegal miners, the ACDP raised the need to address the current legal conundrum or lacuna that will welcome legislation in this regard. Honourable House Chairperson, if there is any department capable of implementing the policy of beneficiation, it is this one. South Africa continues to export the bulk of its precious raw material and then imports the finished products, while having one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, with youth unemployment also on the increase. The Minister, in response to my question, raised as an impediment to beneficiation the high cost of energy. While this may sound plausible, it is unacceptable. Interventions can and must be made to significantly increase the amount of raw materials beneficiated in South Africa, thereby increasing our employment ranks locally. And the ACDP in this regard has actually called for a beneficiation index to be implemented so that we can actually track the rate of progress or regress with regards to beneficiation. On the nuclear non-proliferation and radiation security sub-program, the concern of the ACDP regarding nuclear energy plants was always the consideration for safety, particularly when it comes to toxic nuclear waste, its longevity, and the limitations in dealing with this waste. Honourable Chairperson, the ACDP asserts that a just energy transition that excludes the use of coal in the energy mix would be unjust. Let's note that the European Union is the second largest destination for South African coal after India. Our coal exports to the EU has increased by over 720%, yet the EU calls for us to close our coal-fired power stations. As of July 2022, China had more than half of the world's new coal power station capacity, with 118 coal power stations, building 2 coal power stations per week. The USA has 285 coal-fired power stations, India 222. South Africa has 14 coal power stations, an energy crisis, high unemployment, poverty and inequality, and 200 years worth of high-quality coal beneath our soil. Not to use this coal with clean coal technology to protect our environment would be unjust and tantamount to deliberately sabotaging our economy. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, the next party entitled to take part in the debate is ActionSA. Is there a member of ActionSA ready to take the podium?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the honorable ministers present. We are newcomers to this. And one of the challenges we have is lack of information and having to make informed decisions about the budget. So our plea is to ensure that we be given information and time to be able to engage. The biggest threat to mankind today, the biggest existential threat, is climate change. What we do not hear is the impact of mineral extraction on climate change. And we would like to hear more on what the plans are of the department in that regard. I was born and raised in Maryland. Gold was extracted a few decades ago. We have mine dumps, we have health problems, we have unemployment, and those issues that we have been left with are not being resolved. We welcome the social and labor plans, but we're concerned about sustainability post-extraction and the problems that are left behind for society. Some of the lands are no longer arable after we've been through them. We're concerned about the knock-on effect of how we transport the minerals, the deterioration of roads, the increased traffic crashes, delays in emergency care because roads have been destroyed by the hurry to export coal, amongst others. We have moved from the lowest electricity producer in 2000 to unaffordable electricity for our people. So whilst we talk about the potential riches that come from mining, we need to ensure that people are not left behind. We hope we will hear about households being able to contribute and earn from clean energy production from their roofs and how they can be assisted. We hope that the issue of environmental degradation and rehabilitation of communities post-mining are taken into account. We worry about sustainability when you are given a school, you are given a clinic, and you can't employ health professionals sustainably for those services. You can't have drugs, you can't have equipment. So we would like more coherence on the benefits to society with other departments so that these benefits are sustainable. We have countries like Singapore that have no minerals, but have jobs and social security for their residents. We are endowed with minerals. Let us ensure that the leadership we have ensures that our citizens do not lack for basics. When you export raw materials to the developed world, let beneficiation stop being lip service. Let it be a reality so that we can increase foreign revenues and be able to create jobs. What we ask is for developmental leadership so that we stop being crybabies. We lack proper guidance and information and clarity on these issues to be able to give you full support. We do not want to create paralysis. And we say, Minister, have the budget, but this should be the last time that people are asked to support budgets blindly. Let us all be given critical information so that we can make informed decisions and contribute constructively to the repair
Honourable
and the
Minister,
rebuild
your time is
of our
up.
country.
Honourable Zibi from Rise. Okay. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you so much, Honorable House Chair, the Minister of Minerals and Petroleum Resources, Mr. Samson Gwede-Mantatch, and of course the Minister of Energy here, members of Parliament, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of Mineral, Comrade Manka, and the entire team, and of course the DG and the entire officials in the ministry. It gives me a great pleasure to really, and a privilege to address you, though I thought all of us, it's our maiden speech because it's our first time. This is the 7th administration, so I am doing a maiden speech at this point. But I'm also want to say that one is humbled really to be entrusted for me with great appreciation for really to address and be in this ministry. It is often said that it is not grown, it is mined. For us as South Africans who have over a century benefited from the mineral endowment that our nation is blessed with, however, that is not without limitation. Coming from an era of pit-to-port approach to mining, the entrenchment of the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Act in 2022 and the introduction of the Mining Charter in 2004 presented significant changes in the living conditions of mining communities and labor-sending areas, transformed the working conditions of mine workers and paved the way for the participation of previously disadvantaged people, in particular women and youth, in this sector. Notwithstanding the ongoing review of the MPRDA, it is also encouraging that since the introduction of the Act, the black ownership in the mining industry has really increased from 2% to 39%, as stated by the President Cyril Ramaphosa during the mining indaba earlier this year. Furthermore, the fact that women participated in the industry and has increased to 72,000 women, of which some hold executive positions in global companies that we have since, and as we record, we have the second female president of Mineral Council in South Africa. I think you should clap hands. That's such a great achievement. That means that the industry is beginning to embrace this transformation we're speaking about. We are, however, mindful of the fact that despite our country's endowment with its world's greatest reserves, being the platinum, gold, and metals, these natural resources are largely exported out of the country in their raw form. Hence, we are also concerned about it, therefore exporting the jobs and the profit, and that's what we're also extrapolating as part of the challenges that we face, that we must ensure that we accrue to the people of South Africa. It is against this background that we continue to promote the local beneficiation of these natural resources, reality of the matters that South Africa, to efficiently eradicate this poverty, unemployment, and inequality, it will also require more rapid and inclusive economic growth. Hence, beneficiation at source becomes critical. To this end, government will continue to investment. Yes. Oh.
Chair, talk to the mic. Chair, talk to the mic. What's wrong? Talk to the mic. We can't hear you, Chair.
Please stop the mic. Stop the clock for me.
It's green. Let it be red. Yes.
Honourable Deputy Minister, can you just please take the chair? Can you please raise on your point of order?
Thank you, Chair. No, Chair, I just wanted to check if it's parliamentary, and I also just wanted the Minister to just breathe and drink water, because it fools. So I just wanted to give us some break. So I just wanted to check, is it parliament?
There's no point of order.
You're abusing us.
Minister, you can continue.
No, Chair, she's abusing
All
us.
right, thank you so much. That 1 minute, I need it back. Yes, that's good. Thank you so much. I'm not going to brief. I have 5 minutes, so I need to cover you because I want to come and sweep you from what you also spoke to, which is nothing much really about, rather about your celebration and so forth. So I want to come there. So I wanted to say to this government, we continue to invest in the sizable resources to stimulate and grow our economy, to create this business and job opportunities for youth and women, as evident projects with the newly established Exploration Fund and the Artisanal and Small-Scale Mining Fund. In addition to this funding, the department continues to provide the non-financial support to artisanal and small-scale miners, including empowerment women through the Women's Diggers Program Office. Since its introduction, and 200 women have empowered with knowledge and skills. Our considered view is that the investing in the exploration efforts and empowerment of women and youth-owned mining companies will not only transform the mining industry, but will further accelerate the discovery of new mineral resources that promote the emergence of new mines and ensure that women and young people become active participants in the extraction and exploitation of our national minerals endowment. So I want to come quickly because I wanted to sweep quickly just what the honorable member spoke to, especially from the EFF. The point around the health and safety, I mean, really the budget at this point is for inspections, and that's what we do around inspection of policy and regulations and the results to drive policy and government. That's why it's important for you to come here and use this platform to make sure that government does its work and you are able to deal with the budget, besides speaking about all your parties and all of that. The policy direction of the department is quite important. The president and the minister will also deal with the issues of coal at this point. I think there's a point around the DA. I also would wanted the DA to really speak about what ideas are you bringing. The only thing I heard, you are ranting and complaining without really giving out solution around the matters. So I want to say to yourself to respond to you and give information. The government procurement process, when it comes to this department around the issue of sourcing, they saw solution from 3 companies and 3 companies bidded in a consortium. That you need to understand. It was a consortium, hence it took too long. Am I being stopped? Oh.
Your time is up, Deputy Minister.
Oh, okay. I support the budget votes.
Honourable members, can we have order? Honourable Minister, do you have a point of order? Can we have please order in this house? Honourable members, honourable members, honourable member, can you please, do you want to raise a point? Do you want to raise a point of order? Do you want to raise a point of order? If not, can you please keep quiet or leave the chamber? Do you want to raise a point of order? Do any one of the 3 of you want to raise a point of order? If you don't want, you can leave the chamber. Honourable member.
Thank you. Thank you very much, House Chair. I rise on a point of order that heckling is allowed, as we know, all of us, but drowning a speaker to an extent where we can't hear the speaker is just not on, and we would want to plead with Honorable Ntangweni and the team to heckle, not disrupt, because we also had an opportunity where we did not agree with Chair, can I be protected?
Honourable members, can we have order, please? Honourable members, I have the duty. Honourable members, I have the duty to ensure a smooth conduct of procedures. At this moment, there is no smooth conduct of procedures. I have to ensure that the privileges of all members of the sitting are protected. If a member does not wish to participate in the proceedings, he or she is free not to do so. Such a position, however, cannot mean that the House must be prevented from carrying out its constitutional mandate. What I see now, what we've experienced now, is the abuse of the privilege of freedom of speech, and that it's unacceptable. I warn you, honourable members, I'm not taking any further points of order, and I will not allow any loud drowning out of the speakers. because this procedure of points of order is being abused. A member conducting him or herself like this is acting disorderly, in contempt, and is in complete disregard of the authority of the chair. A member who does this will be asked to leave the chamber. Please, members, can we continue in a more fashionable way, not drowning out? You may heckle, but please don't drown out, and don't have personal discussions while members are at the chair. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair.
Ruled. If you have to raise your
On a point
hand
of
on
order,
the same rule,
I think you are out of order even for yourself. You can't, it's unparliamentary to say you are not going to accept point of orders. Because if something arises along the way, you need to point.
I ask you, honourable member, do you want to raise on a point of the same, on the same?
No, it's not. To say that I can't rise on a point of order, you said you're not going to accept any other. You need to be specific whether on this point or on other points.
Honourable member, I ask you, do you want to rise on the same point of order? Do you have a new point of order?
I think you've understood my argument, Chair. Thank you.
Honourable member, do you want to rise on a new point of order or the same point of order? Can you state your new point of order? Not your.
Sihlalo, engusho mina ukuthi uma uzothi ngeke usawamukela amanye ama point of order. Ngithi ngicela ukuthi ube specific usitshele kahle ukuthi usho kule point esikhuluma ngalo noma nje going forward kuze kuphela umhlangano. Indlu izihlanze awuzuwamukela ama point of order ikona bengibuza lokho bengikusho ukuthi awukwazi ukuthi ngeke uwamukela ama point of order ngoba akukho parliamentary. Ngiyabonga.
Honourable, I couldn't hear. Yeah, but what did he say?
Yeah, I didn't hear what he said.
Okay. Honourable member, can you please repeat what you've said? Because while you were speaking, I couldn't follow the translation.
For the time of the sitting, ngiyashaya nxa sihlalo. Ngiyabonga. Ngiyacanga ukuthi ngizwile.
Honourable member, if that is how you want to do it, that's fine. Honourable member, your point of order. Yes.
Ngibonga wesihlalo lapho ngaphambili. Bengithi ngaphambi kokuthi kudlulelwe phambili. Uyayisho imithetho yala eParliament. Kodwa lokho ukuthi sibizwe ngeteam. Ngifuna ukwazi qala i-team uyayazi ukuthi yini kudlalwa ibhola yini lana noma kusina ingoma yini la. Ngicela manje umtshela ukuthi akahoxise ukuthi usibiza ngeteam. Asiwona i-team thina lana. Asini ngoma la. Angazi uyabona nje ngamanye amazwi kusidelela lokho. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you very much, honourable member. Unfortunately, I will not rule and deal with teams. I will deal with individuals, so that's not a point of order. Can we please continue? Honourable member, your point of order, please.
Chair, na kensa sinene ngova. Ule kubulawuleni chair ene ayile kukutweni kurori na antisa ku ubulawula naman because you should be able to speak to us.
I'm Honourable Lapaskachny. I'm the acting chair of this session. Thank you very much. Can we continue, please? The next speaker is Honourable Zizi of Rise. Thank you. Zibi. Honourable Zibi.
Chairperson, honourable members, Minister and Deputy Minister. Oh.
Just continue. Just continue.
It was just over 12 years ago at the mining Indaba, one of your predecessors, Minister, promised a one-stop shop for licensing and mining operations to facilitate investment. This would process exploration, mining, and integrated water use license applications. This would be accompanied by a cadastral system that would improve transparency and efficiency of license application processing. Okay.
The mic is green, Chairperson.
On a point of order, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think it's quite disappointing, and we must note the disappointment of the EFF, that there's one, we have mentioned about this, and there are even whoops here, you are a House Chairperson, that we don't have translation services here. And it's quite disappointing, even for you as a presiding officer, when members of parliament are raising points of orders, and for you not to even entertain that or come back to them and say that I did understand, or this is how I'm ruling. So that is, it's very disappointing. If you're going to continue presiding like this as a presiding officer, this will be a huge problem for us, because we cannot continue like this. Each member is entitled to speak whatever language of choice, and they are entitled to be heard on whatever point of order. We are individual members of parliament that comes here and address us individually, not as a group and as a team. It was a ruling once before. If the member don't, he can go and ask the Minister of Agriculture. He have a PhD in studying the rules of parliament. That is the only PhD he will ever have in his entire life.
I'm busy checking. I don't know if, I think it was there.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I do accept the point that you said that if the translation is not working, I'm not aware of that. That is a problem, and I just spoke to the table staff, and that we will have look into that. I fully agree on that. Thank you very much. Can we continue? Honourable Zibi.
Minister, that was 12 years ago. Today, we are still talking about the same. Also, it was 17 years ago that I was involved in discussions with officials of your department to regulate the increasing export of unbeneficiated chrome ore to China. At the time, the Chinese were using our ore to build a ferrochrome industry, while we have a natural endowment that should make us a dominant player in South Africa. Today, China is a major ferrochrome producer at our expense. That intervention never happened, even though there was a bilateral agreement with China that said minerals must be beneficiated at source. What the Chinese are producing at home should be exported from South Africa, not produced in China. Today, the same intervention against the export of unbeneficiated ore would probably sink a few major operators in that sector, because they themselves have come to rely on ore exports. This is unsustainable. Minister, we need mining sub-sector strategies immediately after the review you were talking about, and a commitment to act with speed. We can no longer continue to be mere price takers, even in minerals where we are supposed to be the dominant resource owner in the world. The mining sector is a significant economic driver in South Africa, employing just under 500,000 people, with about 782 billion rand in exports last year. These numbers might sound impressive, but they could be much bigger. We need a strong, efficient and fair regulator that moves with speed. Unfortunately, you told me you're a sprinter in your day. We cannot wait so many years while we have so much unemployment and poverty in South Africa. The same applies to prospecting rights and exploration licenses. If we are serious about growing our economy, the mining sector, the department needs to, among other things, fulfill the commitment to establish the electronic system you are talking about. Next year, Minister, we cannot be speaking about future activities when you come back here. Secondly, the amendments to the MPRDA you referred to must result in a one-stop shop for mining and related permits, where various permits can be obtained in a single location with the interdependent departments working closely together. Finally, Minister, please speak to the Minister of Finance about tax incentives for junior and in particular women and black-owned mining firms, and between you and the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, support these firms with grants, competitive loans and access to markets. If we, all of us in this House, can achieve this, then we can create more jobs, put food on tables, and build communities where people live dignified lives. I thank you.
The next member is from, I don't have a name. The next party is the NCC. I don't have a name here. Is there any member of the NCC? Not here. Then we move on to the UAT, Honorable Mashlati. Latsi. Yeah. Not here. Then we are moving on to the next party. That's the next speaker is Honorable Milam from the DA.
House Chairperson, the Democratic Alliance welcomes the new energy that has emerged in the Department of Energy and Electricity through the appointment of a new minister and deputy minister. It is no secret that the previous minister and the old Department of Mineral Resources and Energy was moribund and lethargic in their approach to dealing with the energy crisis in South Africa. This means that there is a mountain to climb if we are to address the challenges facing our country and our economy. After 104 load-shedding free days, Eskom has this week reintroduced what they call load reduction in network congested areas. Now let's be very clear. Load reduction is just load shedding by another name. Our number one priority, therefore, must be to create more generation capacity, in whatever form, to address the supply shortfall. As the winter weather worsens, demand will increase and our aging infrastructure will not be able to cope. One of the major challenges identified as constraining generation capacity is the availability of access to the transmission grid. And this talks directly to the network congestion argument being offered by Eskom as the excuse for the renewed power cuts affecting some 336,000 households right now in the middle of winter. We have heard repeatedly that Eskom requires 14,500 kilometers of new transmission lines and infrastructure in the short and medium term in order to get power from where it is generated to where it is needed. And yet, we have seen little in the way of investment or planning to build this. And this budget vote doesn't address this at all. We welcome the renewed focus on renewable energy and the acceleration of the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producers Procurement Program, announced by Minister Ramokgopa, the new Minister of Energy and Electricity. This is something the DA has promoted for years, and it is a relief that the government has finally seen the light. Of concern, however, is the announcement recently of an increased import tariff for solar panels. Until South Africa is in a position to produce solar panels in bulk, we cannot afford to throttle that pipeline or raise the cost of the only thing that is minimizing load shedding at the moment, namely rooftop solar. I urge Minister Ramokgopa to meet with his colleagues in the Department of Trade and Industry and the National Treasury and scrap this unnecessary and unwelcome intervention and rather seek ways to make it easier and cheaper for people to install rooftop solar. We also welcome the announcement that the updated Integrated Resource Plan, the Gas Master Plan, and the Integrated Energy Plan will be published this year. We trust that these will incorporate all the input from comments made on the rather shoddy drafts circulated by the previous administration. It is vital that the IRP in particular be updated on a regular basis and that it takes along and aligns with South Africa's just energy transition commitments. The minister has also made much of the nuclear new build. He proposes to procure 2,500 megawatts of nuclear energy with an RFP being issued imminently. As the DA has stated repeatedly, IRP 2019, which I think we now acknowledge is outdated and was from the day that it was gazetted, does not give the minister a blanket authority to procure this. It talks about procuring nuclear at a pace and scale the country can afford. Now, that immediately implies that it will be a phased approach. And yet, this is very different from what the Section 34 determination issued at the end of last year proposes. It is for this reason, amongst others, that the DA is taking that decision to issue the Section 34 determination to procure new nuclear on legal review. The matter will be heard in the Gauteng High Court on 15 and 16 October. But as things stand right now, it appears that NERSA and the various ministers involved are on very shaky ground. I must stress that the DA supports the life extension project currently underway at the Koeberg nuclear power plant, although we call for far greater transparency regarding the timeline, the costs, and other details of the project, including the status of the license renewals by the National Nuclear Regulator. And then there is the proverbial stepchild of the Department of Energy, the Central Energy Fund, and its subsidiaries, including PetroSA and the Strategic Fuel Fund. Towards the end of last year, PetroSA issued several RFPs. Among them was the tender to refurbish the mothballed gas-to-liquid plant at Mossel Bay. This was awarded to Gazprom Bank, the finance arm of the Russian state-owned oil and gas company. The process left a lot to be desired. It appeared that the tender criteria were custom designed to ensure that Gazprom Bank was appointed. And to date, PetroSA have not even bothered to acknowledge the prior applications for the record of decision. Nor is this the only dodgy deal involving PetroSA. The Equator Holdings RFP saw the appointment of a company with neither the technical skills nor the financial capacity to refurbish the gas pipeline infrastructure. Simple due diligence would have exposed this. Our prior applications for PetroSA's record of decisions in these matters have also been obstructed. As we move forward, we seek greater transparency and accountability from the new Department of Energy and Electricity. We call on the Minister and his team to ensure that South Africa's electricity crisis is dealt with expeditiously and that he takes concrete steps to address the cost of energy, which is a major contributor to the cost of living crunch affecting every single South African. The DA will be watching very closely, Minister.
The next speaker is Honorable Sen from the ANC. As far as I know, it's a maiden speech.
House Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Minister, Honorable Members, it is an honor and privilege for me as a new member to participate in this debate on behalf of my party, the African National Congress. My participation in this debate becomes even more relevant in that I come from the mining town of Rustenburg in the Northwest Province. Budget Vote 34 contributes and shapes South Africa's economic policy, trajectory, and the transformation agenda. In the real economy, it informs the economic outcomes of the National Development Plan, the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, and the Government of National Unity's medium-term strategic framework. To this end, the newly formed Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources plays a pivotal role in concrete expression to the Freedom Charter's declaration that the mineral wealth beneath the soil shall be restored to the ownership of the people as a whole, and that all other industry shall be used for the well-being of the people. Skeptics has posited the idea that because of the recent survey that says South Africa is positioned amongst the 10 least attractive jurisdictions for mining investment by the Fraser Institute annual survey of mining companies. Therefore, the department is worsening the well-being of South Africans. Let us look closely at the facts. Between 2019 through 2022, mining gross value addition grew by 16%, mining gross fixed capital grew by 2.8%, total mining revenue grew by 17.4% from a low base value of 551 billion rand to 881 billion rand, driven by improved commodity prices and sales. The number of legally recognized and compliant mines grew from 1,948 to 2,056, and the mining employment growth rate increased by 0.6% from 459,528 to 464,615. Clearly, the budget vote 34 has a strong commitment to deepen macroeconomic performance of the minerals and mining industry in the current financial year. In the 2024-2025 financial year, budget vote 34 concerns itself with reviewing the Minerals and Petroleum Resources Development Act in the hope of charting policy and regulatory certainty for the minerals and mining industry. Specifically, the expected effectiveness of the reviewed MPRDA will reduce red tape and improve the business environment, arguably signaling the creditworthiness of the South African minerals and mining industry to the investors. Already, there is growth in this sector, particularly in Limpopo province. The reviewing of MPRDA will be complemented by the rollout of a web-based mining license applications system designed to meet the objectives of reducing mining license backlog and ensuring that transparency, fairness, effectiveness, and efficiency are entrenched in the mining applications process. The growing trend in illegal mining has spread concerns about the safety and operations of mines in South Africa, which has in turn produced some amongst investors in this sector. Given these concerns, Budget Vote 34 commits to the rehabilitation of 3 derelict and ownerless asbestos mines with an annual budget of 143 million rands. Additionally, 40 unsafe mine shafts will be sealed off, thus not only signaling improved safety and operations of mines in South Africa to potential investors, but ensuring that leakages in our national revenue stream are fixed and multiplier effect in the job sector will occur. For instance, Budget Vote 34 takes seriously the goal of employment creation, which is part of the Government of National Unity's MTSF priority on investing accelerated inclusive growth. The number of envisaged 8,000 jobs in the minerals and mining industry through the issuing of mining rights in the 2024-2025 financial year supports that economic priority. This much needed 8,000 jobs will increase individual incomes required for boosting domestic aggregate demand. In turn, the aggregate demand growth will impel suppliers in the domestic economy to create sustainable jobs to match the increasing demand for goods and services, and this will complement the government's efforts in spurring the private sector on to contribute to the gross fixed capital formation, an important contributor to our gross domestic production. Besides, the Budget Vote 34 intends to complete 132 social and labor plans in 2024-2025 financial year. The importance of SLPs is that they bind mining communities to pursue corporate practice that improve the living conditions of surrounding mining communities through sustainable livelihoods. In that way, the industry contributes by means in giving concrete expression to the Freedom Charter's call for the nation's wealth to be used for the well-being of the people. If mining companies commit to their SLPs and social compact, this will increase and surpass the 8,000 targeted jobs through the issuing of mining rights. To safeguard the lot of HDSAs in the minerals and mining industry, Budget Vote 34 commits to the implementation of the mining sector women empowerment strategy, the gender equality and the mining sector youth empowerment strategy, and the artisanal and small-scale mining policy geared towards improving the participation of the HDSAs, especially women, youth, and people with disabilities. With this unified approach, the social justice, equity, and redress, we will be truly translating into action the ideals of our Constitution of non-racialism, non-sexism, and democracy, and the dreams of the founding mothers and fathers of our constitutional democracy. More crucially, since most disadvantaged sections of our society do not have adequate access to capital markets, has an appetite to aversion to risks. Budget Vote 34 provides financial support to small-scale miners and junior mining companies to improve their productive capabilities in the minerals and mining industry. This financial support will be possible through a strategic collaboration between the Industrial Development Corporation and the department. That is why Budget Vote 34 commits 80 million rands and the IDC a further 200 million rands to establish a dedicated exploration funds for mining, aimed not only at ensuring sustainability, but future growth of the minerals and mining industry, with view to hedging small-scale miners and junior mining companies from inherent risks in mining exploration. With that being said, the ANC supports the adoption of Budget Vote 34. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. That is now the Honorable Minister of Mineral Resources and Petroleum.
Thank you, House Chairperson. There's coincidence of MK and TA agreeing on something very strange, that mines must be nationalized. That's what the TA says. I think they agree with you. Now, I can assure the DA that we don't need the DA to talk to mine owners. We do that every day. We talk to mine owners every day. That's why they were happy with the reappointment of the same minister, who is the first minister who knows the sector. Yes, okay. Number two, Russian gas to be imported. I don't think we are ashamed of importing gas from Russia. We are members of BRICS. We want to increase trade with Russia. So if it is the allege for the DA to trade with Russia, we don't have that allege. Now let me go to MK Party. MK Party talks about refining of PetroSA and do business with Russia. I want to remind my comrades that in the years that somebody was leading the ANC, PetroSA was stripped to nothing. That is asset stripping by a leader that we know. Okay, that a leader that we know stripped PetroSA to nothing. Yes. Now, the point I'm making is that we must not play to the gallery here. Let's talk facts. Now, in terms of access to electricity, it has increased from 34% in 1994 to 93% today. We're close to universal access to electricity. I want to leave it there. On the EFF, I think it is important to appreciate that anyway, I don't remember EFF voting with us on any budget speech. It doesn't matter which year, every year. So when you say you reject the budget speech, you do what we are expecting of you. Now, let me go to clean energy production. There were SSA, no employment of professionals. I don't know what is professionals, because in the energy sector, that's where there's no shortage of professionals. The cadastral system, Honorable Zebi, is underway, is being implemented. All we are saying is that it is being implemented systematically, province by province. We are hoping to complete it by June 2025. And that is because we are careful not to rush and collapse it in the middle of implementation. And that talks to the exportation of chrome to China. We'll look into that, but chrome export has been reduced. But I always talk to this thing of beneficiation. Beneficiation is a function of efficient, reliable, cost-effective electricity supply. If you don't have that, you will run into problems. I think Honorable Ramkhupa is working with that. Honorable Mailam talks of the past minister being moribund and lethargic. I appreciate the feedback. I think if you are dynamic, you should be a deputy minister of energy today. Because you're not dynamic, you are not. So your party knows that you are moribund and lethargic. So they could not appoint you. Now, and nuclear is going to be implemented at a pace and cost that the country can afford. I know you want to take us on review because you think that this country must depend on renewables. I am telling you, now write it in your book, put it in your safe, that renewables will never be sustainable without partnering with base load technology. You need to partner those. If you don't know that, then you can't be a deputy minister. Thank you very much.
Honorable members. Honorable members. Order, please. Honorable members, order, please. Honorable members, that concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary session will now rise.
Ngesikhathi allocate izindlu ngayithola. Kuvulekile. Oh, icindezelwa ibhega.